Hello, I'm Dr. Robert Faust with Monolife Laboratories and Faust Bioagricultural Services. I've been working with humic substances, humic acid, for over 40 years. And when we first started, we really didn't know anything, or very little. We weren't sure how it worked. We weren't really sure what was going on. Well, since then, we've had a revolution in knowledge, molecular genetics, organic chemistry. And with the internet, we've been able to share with scientists from all over the world. We have an International Humic Substances Society that has scientific meetings, which I attend. I've been attending for years. We have a Humic Acid Producers Association, Retail Trade Association, and we have a Humic Acid Research Group at Northeast University in Boston, and I attend those meetings. So this is a subject of high science, and we've learned a lot over the years because we have better tools, we have better understanding of science. Now, recently I've been getting a lot of questions about fulvic acid, and it's clear to me that there's a lot of misinformation, and it's just kind of amazing the level of myth and misinformation surrounding fulvic acid, tying it together with colloidal minerals or the need for minerals, this whole thing. Okay, well, first of all, I'm going to try to answer a recent letter I got with some questions. And then I'm going to go into some other interesting things that have never been presented on the internet before or at all. And it has to do, what is the real criteria for medical grade fulvic acid, which is called Wujinsan in China. That's also what we call it because it is based on ancient principles in modern science. It was developed in China. There's an association. There's a criteria. It's very specific. And I will go over that criteria briefly because it's very complex. First of all, I'm going to try to answer questions I just got from someone over the internet. He says, I have been searching for the best fulvic humic acid, and is it true? And it is true that it is a daunting task. Every company says theirs is the best and in high concentration form, like T.J. Clark's from Utah, Mineral Logic, is willing to give out their lab analysis, and they use only water over 2 years, high in minerals, especially magnesium, also high in aluminum. Yes. Okay, that's then question one. I look at your lab test. Your fulvic acid doesn't contain minerals. Your peat fossil source to ferment, I assume it's from a pristine source. Well, of course. How different is it from Hungarian peat? Blah, blah, blah. Okay. First of all, my fulvic acid does not contain minerals. That's exactly what it's supposed to be. If it is loaded with minerals, that means all the receptor sites are filled, and then it can't act as a chelator. And the idea is it started out as a chelator, and actually, interestingly enough, the first people that used it were people that had high levels of heavy metals like mercury, lead, aluminum, from taking, let's say, a so-called colloidal mineral fulvic acid product from Utah. Okay, so in order to get rid of the heavy metals accumulated, you need a pure fulvic acid that doesn't contain minerals, because the idea is it complexes and chelates these minerals, and then they're flushed out of your body either by sweating or by other means, excretory means. Okay, so ideally, the fulvic acid contains no minerals because it's got nothing to do with minerals. It's defined as the acid-soluble fraction of organic matter, or humus. The minerals are in the humic acid. The fulvic acid should be pure of minerals, free of minerals. And of course, people will say, well, but don't we need minerals? Yes, you need minerals. Minerals are found in food, A lot of times they're also in water, for instance, calcium, magnesium. You get minerals from eating food. The fulvic acid increases the availability of minerals in your food. And it increases the absorption because it increases the permeability of cell membrane. So in your gut, your cells are more absorptive. They can translocate the materials, the minerals. Also, humic substances, fulvic acid, tends to precipitate heavy metals. So it's not necessarily going to increase the solubility. And it's a chelator. It starts with heavy metals like cadmium, mercury, lead, and in that order. So this whole red herring of minerals, as if, somehow we're not getting any minerals. The soils don't have minerals anymore. Well, plants will not grow. Plants have the same requirements for minerals as people. And if there's no minerals, you're not going to get optimum plant growth to begin with. My advice is to eat organic foods. Use our agricultural garden products that contain humic substances and trace elements. Feed your garden, eat that food. That's how you get minerals. You get minerals from food. It has to be filtered by plants, taken up by plants. And they generally exclude the heavy metals. In a properly managed soil with the pH up, you're not going to get soluble lead or mercury. Only in very acidic conditions. And that's true of aluminum. Aluminum is common on Earth. It's the most common element on Earth. It's high in soils. If it weren't for humic substances, we'd be getting high uptake of aluminum. Except it kills plants. It causes damage to plants. It's obvious when you have a high aluminum uptake. Plants yellow. They don't grow well. And all that is necessary there is the application of humic substances and lime to bring the pH up. And then you will no longer be soluble or available. Okay, let me try to get back to the question. So, no, our fulvic acid doesn't contain minerals, and we go to a great deal of difficulty in doing that. And we're the only fulvic acid product out there that I'm aware of that is certified organic by OMRI for use in organic crops, because nobody else can figure out how to do this without acidifying and creating, soluble heavy metals. The other issue is the idea of the source of the material. Okay, well, we source our material from something that's sort of halfway between peat and what is known as humate. And humate is highly concentrated organic matter that's decomposed as far as organic matter can decompose. And the end result is the humic acids with an S. And that's humic, fulvic, olmic acid. Of those fulvic acids, the low molecular weight fulvic acid is a golden color. It's defined as soluble in acid, and that's fulvic acid. But there's no specific chemical called fulvic acid. It's like soup. It's like saying soup. It's a fraction. It's the only chemical defined as a fraction. It is the acid-soluble fraction of humus. Okay? That particular fraction has hundreds of compounds in it. And those individual compounds are what are responsible for the effect. Because there's no such thing as a chemical called fulvic acid. There's probably 300 to 400 different compounds or more in so-called fulvic acid. So fulvic acid is going to vary tremendously. It's like using the term soup. What kind of soup? Is it stone soup? Is it minestrone? Is it shit soup? That word is interchangeable. It means a combination of stuff. And in German, for instance, fulvic acid is Geldstuff or golden stuff because it's defined by color. It's a golden color. But within the fulvic acid, you have a whole range of functional groups. These are organic compounds, like quinone groups, like carboxyls, carbonyls, And then you have specific compounds like polyphenols, which are found in a lot of substances. They're very beneficial. They're antioxidants. Then you have tannins. You have a whole range. Basically, all the compounds that would be found in plants in a concentrated form. And these are complex things. Okay, and they work on the molecular level of the cell. So people ask me, well, is it good? I see you have research that is good on cows, pigs, chickens. What about people? Well, it's a cellular phenomenon. It can be algae, it can be higher plants, it can be mushrooms, it can be sheep, cattle, pigs, humans, because we're all cellular, and it works on the level of the cell. It stimulates cell division. It protects the cell against free radical damage at the level of the nucleus. It stimulates the mitochondria, which is the powerhouse of the cell. It's got nothing to do with minerals, although it will increase the availability of minerals in the gut that's in the food. But the effect isn't from minerals. It's unnecessary to have minerals. You lose the chelating effect if it's saturated with so-called minerals. And then the other idea of minerals is we need minerals. Okay, what are minerals? Minerals are like all the elements on the periodic chart of elements. Okay, you only need, say, 23 of those. Many of the elements, minerals, on the periodic chart of elements are toxic heavy metals. Not only don't you need toxic heavy metals, they are toxic. 1 part per million cadmium can destroy your heart valve, heart muscle. Lead can reduce your IQ, cause gout, cause serious health problems. Mercury can turn you into a vegetable. Okay, and not just a few of the heavy metals. Aluminum over time is suspected of causing Alzheimer's disease. It's a mineral. Okay. So there's specific minerals we need. The mineral that most Americans or most people in the world are deficient in is zinc. Okay, it just so happens that these humic substances don't have a high zinc level, so the actual mineral you need isn't even there. Okay, so the idea is if you need minerals, take a mineral supplement, eat better. You know, have a more varied diet. Do your own garden. Use our bioag products to grow your garden. You'll have plenty of minerals. We make a product called TM7. It's humic acid with 7 trace elements added. Zinc, manganese, copper, boron, selenium. These are minerals you need. You take the minerals you need. We are not like cattle. We just can't lick dirt and get minerals from it. You know, it's got to be in a much more soluble form. It's got to be filtered through plant roots and into plants. So there's a huge misconception out there about this idea of minerals. It's just because they have a high level of minerals and heavy metals in some of these products, and they just want to make a silk purse out of a sow's ear. They don't know how to extract it without getting these minerals, so they try to sell the idea of the minerals. You need minerals. Of course you need minerals. Plants need, everything needs minerals. But you don't get them from like some deposit dug out of a hillside that's contaminated with heavy metals. Even iron predisposes one to cancer. That's been proven. So we don't want iron either. I mean, if you specifically need a mineral, you can get a hair analysis, blood analysis, and find out what you need and what you have too much of and deal with it. Most people have too much mercury, lead, cadmium. They need chelation, and they use our product. We turned kids in Mexico that had eaten lead paint that were vegetables and normalized their life within a couple weeks, just from the chelation effect of getting rid of the heavy metals like lead that just cloud your perception. So I can't stress that enough. There's some serious misinformation out there. Like, for instance, our product Wujinsan, which is designed as a supplement based on the Chinese criteria, does not contain heavy metal. It's not detectable. That's the way it's supposed to be. And aluminum, there's no more than a few parts per million in an uncombined form. So in other words, insoluble form. Many of these products have aluminum in the percent. They have a higher percentage number on aluminum than we do have parts per million in ours. Okay, it's not a good thing. You never need aluminum in your diet. You never need heavy metals. You never need most of the minerals on the periodic chart of elements. So that's totally misleading. Okay, let me get back to these questions. Yeah, we use a peat source that's halfway between humate and peat. It's younger geologically. It's very high in fulvic acid. It's been protected between layers of clay. And it's got a very low ash. It's got zero heavy metals for the most part. Of course, the humic acid is going to have heavy metals because it's basically the breakdown of plants, and it's going to have every mineral that was in those plants, but it's going to be attached to the black stuff, the humic stuff. And basically, we extract the golden stuff, the fulvic, and we leave the black stuff behind. The black stuff contains the heavy metals, toxic components like methylene groups. These are, nobody even mentions this. The methylene groups are associated with hydrocarbons. So they're found in humates, coal, oil. These are not good things to take, and they need to be removed. So we use a very high-grade peat material. I've been in the peat business. I mean, I had Montana Peat Products Corporation back in the 70s, and this is what got me into this. And so peat of certain types, not all types, not peat moss, but humus peat and fossil concentrated humic substances, which is what we found in Montana, are like a very concentrated source of fulvic acid. So that's one of the sources we use. We have several sources. It depends on the uses and what we're going to do. We do agriculture. We're the largest producers of fulvic acid in the United States. And we supply many other companies with raw materials. We supply several other countries. So, we've been in this longer than anybody. We have the best research. Everybody says they have the best. Okay? We have data to back that up. And I'll get to that once I get through these questions. And then we use an enzymatic technique, uses enzymes and microbes to wake up something that's ancient. You just can't throw acid in there and water and wake this stuff up. It's got very complex chemistry. It's very subtle, very delicate. So the extraction processes, heat, destroy the enzymes, destroy the polyphenols, and all the beneficial components, quinones, etc. It's very complex. And then they ask me, oh, now there could be acid rain because of Japan, and you are collecting rainwater and purifying it for fermentation process. Yeah, it doesn't come from Japan. It comes from the Gulf of Alaska in the winter. That's when we get rain in Oregon. It's from meltwater from glacial and ice fields up in Alaska, the Gulf of Alaska. That's the weather patterns that come here in Oregon in the winter. It's dry in the summer. And so the rain we get is tested. It's absolutely pure. It is sold in the state of Oregon as a product called Oregon Rain, and bottled. It's the purest water available. Groundwater is not pure. Groundwater is contaminated. It's got heavy metals. It's got agricultural pesticides, nitrates, microbes. The rainwater we have, which is filtered, processed, is pristine. Absolutely pristine. We tested it. Doesn't have aluminum in it, folks. No. I mean, yes, we do have chemtrails, but not in association with these winter rains necessarily. So we tested. It's pristine. It's used as high-grade drinking water here in the state of Oregon. And it's available at supermarkets in a bottle called Oregon Rain. That's not our company. But we do actually obtain rainwater from that company to make the Wujinsan. Okay, it's certified. It's pure. It's not an issue. It's not acid rain. comes from Alaska, the Arctic, the Gulf of Alaska. That's where it comes from, not Japan. No. Okay, so next question. Okay, he says, you are saying that direct intake of minerals can be dangerous, and people are giving good testimonies taking the trace elements, but you say it's dangerous. I don't say trace elements are dangerous. Definitely specific trace elements slash minerals slash elements are very dangerous. And I already mentioned it. Mercury, cadmium, 1 part per million cadmium, and you're going to have damage to your heart muscle that could lead to heart disease, death. I mean, yes, I am saying that certain trace elements, minerals, or elements, which these are interchangeable words, are definitely dangerous. You do not want them. Am I saying that all trace elements are dangerous? Absolutely not. We're in the business of making nutrient solutions and stuff for hydroponics. We use trace elements. They're absolutely necessary for plant health, animal health, human health. So I am a promoter of trace elements. Fulvic acid increases the uptake of trace elements from your food. We sell a product called Fauna Mana. Check it out. It's Asian medicinal mushrooms, and they contain all the minerals you need, including selenium, which is actually added. So there are specific trace elements that are beneficial. Others are deadly. So no. Let's get more specific here. I'm not saying that you don't need trace elements. Some people do good on trace elements. I'm not saying that. I'm just getting more specific. I'm getting away from the innuendo here. Trace elements are necessary. Certain ones, I can name them: zinc, manganese, copper, boron, iron, molybdenum, cobalt, okay, selenium, vanadium, okay? The rest are not necessary. And many of them are highly toxic. So let's make that clear. Dr. Faust has never said you don't need trace elements. That's ridiculous. People just have to get a little more discriminatory here in what we're talking about. You just can't lump like minerals in one package. I mean, you got toxic and you got beneficial there. If you need a mineral like zinc, take it as a supplement. Buy our Fauna Mana. It's a safe source of trace elements that have been digested by mushroom mycelia and are in a biological form that's available, along with humic substances and kelp. Okay? So that's crucial. And you understand the difference between minerals and elements. And they're not all good, believe me, because we do a lot of work with kids that have heavy metal toxicity, and I use our product for chelation therapy. And also people that are welders, people who work in the aviation industry, that are exposed to cadmium, etc. Okay, most of these other products, I don't know what they are even. I mean, they're extracted from some kind of minerals, all right, deposits, coal-like materials, and they do contain mercury. And sometimes they even leave these analyses off their analysis sheet. You won't find mercury on it because they don't want you to see it. And they'll be in the percentage levels of things like aluminum and iron, and they have traces of mercury, cadmium, lead. It's just kind of what's made me start this whole thing, bottom line, when I found out about a lot of these products. Even though fulvic acid is a great, great benefit, it certainly isn't when it's saturated with toxic heavy metals. Okay. Is your fulvic acid enough for detoxifying the body, getting rid of toxic metals? Yes. That's what I've been getting at. It's been used for years, over 15 years for that purpose. It's been used for centuries in China and Eastern Europe and so forth. So this is what you use for detoxifying the body and getting rid of heavy metals. Absolutely. There's a regular program, of taking 3 ounces for 3 weeks, 2 ounces for 3 weeks, and then 1 ounce maintenance, and then sweating, sauna, hot tub, because your body will sweat out these heavy metals once they're chelated from the humic substance, which also tends to make you sweat. That's also another story. Okay, back to questions. Any suggestions on ethical lab analysis companies for the before and after urine tests for toxic metals? Well, I mean, basically any medical lab can do that. I mean, if you go into a doctor's office and you get them to do a blood series of blood tests, and just you can request mercury, lead, the whole 9 yards, everything. I mean, vitamins, everything. You can identify just with a blood test at a standard medical lab will tell you. Okay. And then they might recommend a chelating thing like EDTA, which is a synthetic chelation substance. Fulvic acid is a natural chelating substance. And there's been plenty of research mentioned. You mentioned Hungary, and there has been a lot of research in Hungary on peat-based fulvic acid to detox heavy metals, and in what order they're detoxed. So we know that's true. So any medical lab can test your urine or hair for just about everything, hormones, metals, toxins, you name it. Do you suggest other products with your fulvic acid? No, not unless you specifically need them. You know, I mean, there's got to be a reason why you're doing these things. I mean, what other minerals? Yes. I mean, it depends on circumstances. We have medicinal mushroom products and antioxidants included with humic substances. And I think it's a wonderful combination because these are all substances that are anti-cancer, and we're all exposed to cancer. So if we happen to know that these particular medicinal mushrooms are used in Asia and China for cancer prevention and cure, then it would be a good idea. It's a good combination. We got to worry about the real things, not imagined things. I mean, these other companies are selling humic substances, fulvic acid, based on more or less innuendo, more or less taking shots at competitors, not saying positive things about their own products. You know, they'll say, well, plastic makes the fulvic toxic, so if you bottle the plastic bottle, it makes it toxic. That's a complete lie. It's just not true. It just amazes me that, and yet, you know, they're selling something that's got heavy metals in it that are known to be incredibly toxic. So it just we just need to educate ourselves to what's going on out there. I wouldn't have been in business all these years if our products weren't effective. And there certainly are. And we get a lot of inquiries from people that have tried some of these so-called colloidal mineral-based so-called fulvic acid products. And they mention all kinds of negative effects. And, you know, they end up taking our products and feeling great. So that's the feedback I get. Yeah, and so that's my comment on this set of questions. And then I do get some questions on silagite, which is a tarry deposit found in the Himalayan mountains under rainforests. It's usually mined in an outcrop, you know, where the soil structure, the hillside strata is exposed. And this is a gummy residue that leaches out of certain forests and forms a very impure source of fulvic acid. Of course, fulvic acid is formed in forests, you know, with organic matter breakdown, swamps, bogs, etc., by specific fungi. And it turns out that silagite has a lot of good benefits, proven. But is it really silagite you're getting? That's the question, because they adulterate it with cow urine, because it does have that cow urine odor normally. But only silagite or fulvic acid derived from euphorbia. These are specific types of trees that produce latex found in mountainous regions like the Himalayas. So it turns out that the only silagite that has a beneficial effect is those derived from specific forests, specific plant matter types. The euphorbiae, you know, these are latex producing trees and plants. Okay, so then it's really impure, you know, and it could contain a range of contaminants. I mean, it just depends on the situation. It's just naturally occurring. It's mined by hand, and there you go. I mean, there's no processing involved. Okay, now let's get over to China. Okay, China has been using fulvic acid for centuries. It's in the medical literature back to the Ming Dynasty. That's in the 1300s. It's used widely today in modern China. Okay, it's produced in China by the China Humic Acid Industry Association at the Peking China Naval General Hospital. So the government, actually the Navy, a hospital owned by the Navy, is where the pharmacists are that produce fulvic acid, called Wujinsan, in China. Okay. Now there's a regular criteria. This is what I'm trying to point out, the difference between these things where they're pushing minerals and all these other effects that have nothing to do with traditional fulvic acid at all. The criteria, and this is the actual criteria from China. It's very complex. It's summary of the article. It is necessary to unify all criterion and testing methods on the basis of unification of qualities and brands of all correlative products as their prerequisites, so that this industry can be developed and emergence of pirated and inferior quality products can be prevented. For this purpose, examinations of all correlative products must regard this outline as a criteria. Any disputes occurring in business shall be arbitrated by the experts committee, and all concrete tests shall be accomplished by the Testing Center of Chinese Humic Acid Industry Association. Okay, some carbohydrates like monosaccharides, disaccharide, polysaccharide, oleosaccharides, which are compound sugars, protein, dextrin, starch, cellulose, lignin, etc., do not belong to the criteria of the humic acids. Some hydrocarbons, including alkane, alkene, the cycloalkenes, fat, etc., without the conjugating system, as well as other substances like chromophore, chromogen, oxochrome, which stand for petroleum products, do not belong to this kind of humic acid. In addition, free amino acid, protein, and their peptide, carbon, and their peptone are similarly not belong to this kind of acid. All metallic, including all salts formed by the chemical reaction of non-ferrous metals, ferrous metals, and rare earth metals, combined with humic acid, but not to calculate their acid roots in the course of calculation, ions, also do not belong in humic acids. So what they're saying, this is translated from Chinese, so it's a little uneven, but what they're saying is that all metallic salts formed from chemical reactions of non-ferrous metals or ferrous metals, that's iron, and that's other metals, and rare earth metals, combined with humic acid, they do not belong in humic acid. They should not be in humic acid. In other words, the criteria of the Chinese, the biggest experts in the world in this, say, right here, that these metals and metal salts should not be in these products. Period. Period. Okay. According to the requirements of the unified criteria, as well as the unified quality and the brand proposed by Executive Council of China Humic Acid Association, we consider it as necessary to stipulate a criteria that accords with international demands as approved by all correlative departments and customers, as well as fraternal industry associations, domestic, preventing the occurrence of pirated and inferior quality products, and for showing both physical and chemical properties of humic acid, and also for confirming all correlative products without detrimental substances to animals, humans, plants, etc. In addition, we must stipulate a draft of criteria and testing methods concerning functions and effectiveness of every correlative product for the experts committee to make discussion. So it gets more and more complicated as we go on here, and I'm just trying to soluble complex compounds can be formed when polybasic acid is combined with one valence metal, and complexing sediment can be paired with this acid is combined with polyvalent metal. But the solubility product constant of zinc salt sediment is comparatively large and cannot be directly used for qualitative analysis. So, it's pretty complicated. The humic acid is a high polymer. Fulvic acid is no longer a high polymer, but it's a low polymer of humic acid with a single peak. The molecular weight of fulvic acid in common use is lower than 2,000, while that of medical fulvic acid is 1,200. So the medical fulvic acid has even lower molecular weight, like our product. And so the color can determine that. The golden light yellow is the low molecular weight. Brown is high molecular weight. Black is super high molecular weight. So the average person can look at the color, will tell you. We're going on and on here about infrared spectrograph testing, etc. Chapter 3. In order to ensure the security of all humic acid products in the course of their application and their effectiveness later, it is necessary to examine the harmful substances existed in all samples and to make a regulation of limiting the quantity. Okay, Clause 14. Examine the chlorides, the sulfates, the calcium salts if they are negative. Clause 15. The content of heavy metal like lead should be lower than 1 to 10,000. The content of arsenate, like arsenic oxide, should be lower than 5 parts per million. The content of radioactive element should be lower than the national standard, and that's less than 4.4 milligrams, like thorium, uranium. The content should be 90 to 110 of its indicated scalar quantity. The content of ash should be lower than 1%. Clause 20. Examine the content of both undivisible acidic and alkaline substance if they should be lower than 0.1%. And it goes on. Chapter 4, we're talking about efficacies, we're talking about an expert committee, different criteria. Most middle and small enterprises lack all analysis and tests and to be done for some qualified scientists and technicians who devoted to transform the technological process. They must rely on assistances from the expert committee, the testing center, and even China Humic Acid Association. But it's most important to improve the quality of products of our industry to state of the art level. So it's quite a complex and difficult criteria. It gets into organic chemistry. They're very crucial here about the heavy metals, just like I am. And this is what I'm basing my criteria on. Our products meet these criteria. Okay? And I'm not aware of anybody else that does in the country or even knows what the criteria is. So this is the first time I've introduced this information. And you got to realize that China is so far ahead of us, and they're the largest country in the world, largest population. They're high levels in science. They've been doing this way before the Ming Dynasty. And we have to look to their information and their research, which I had a 7-year research book of 7 years of research on fulvic acid, which I had translated into English. And I learned a great deal from the Chinese. I also learned a great deal from the Russians, the Germans. Our products have been heavily tested in Germany, and it shows to have longevity effects. And that's probably something I'll talk about in my next YouTube. But basically, I just want to answer a few of these questions and try to resolve some of the misinformation that's out there. That's why I went ahead and presented this Chinese criteria as best as I could. It's about 6 pages. But the important point is that not all fulvic is the same. It doesn't mean anything other than it's a fraction. There's beneficial substances. We know what they are. There's negative substances. We know what they are. and our product contains the beneficial substances like polyphenols, that's really what it's all about. Fulvic acid means nothing. I mean, it doesn't really define Wujinsan. That's why we use the term Wujinsan. In Chinese, it means black gold medicine or golden medicine. And it's a purified fulvic acid. It works on the cell level. It's a chelator. It doesn't contain minerals. It shouldn't contain minerals based on the world's most knowledgeable sources about fulvic acid. Not people on the internet. Not people selling minerals. But the Chinese government and the top scientists of the Humic Acid Society in China. So that's what we're basing our stuff on. And I guess that's enough for now. I know it gets confusing. I will probably follow up with additional YouTubes from now on because I just want the truth to get out there. And I think people that use our product, they know the truth. And we're probably the only company that has an MD as a principal in the company on the staff to answer questions. I'm not a doctor. I'm a PhD in agroecology and agricultural-based and biochemistry-based stuff. So, I mean, I'm not talking on a medical basis. You know, I'm talking on a scientific basis in general. So, visit our website if you want more information. I think we have more real information than anybody else out there. I don't think anybody argues about that. And it's wujinsan.us. WUJINSAN. Black Gold Medicine. Monolife Laboratories. And also, our agricultural website is bioag, BIOAG.com. Real simple, bioag.com. There's a tremendous amount of information there if you really want to find out the truth. Of course, the best way is to try our product. I mean, usually within a week, 90% of the people that contact us say they have more energy and they feel better. And really, that's what they're looking for. So, have a good day, and I will get back to you with some more information later.